In the bottom right, we do have BIG's ShoWTimE. And in the top left, we have Team Liquid's Elazer. I want to say it's a classic matchup, but maybe it was once upon a time. The amount of Zergs that actually exist has severely lessened. So PvZ is no longer the... PvZ and ZvZ are no longer the European matchups. Some much more PvP and, well... then I guess maybe PvZ in these open tournaments, and then, you know, PvT in a lot of the ends of the open cups, because Clem is a very consistent player, Spirit is as well, and here Marine, but they're all in already, so they aren't here. So anyway, this does still kind of remind me of some of the times of the COVID years, and I think Elazer has tried to battle against ShoWTimE even very well previously, despite not liking the matchup for an extended period of time, possibly even to this day. Elazer has actually gone toe-to-toe with ShoWTimE in the past, so even though ShoWTimE most recently on a 6-series win streak as well, sorry, 5, I can count. He last played Elazer 10 months ago. And ShoWTimE has consistently on paper gotten better and better. His most recent Home Story Cup fell a little short, but was still very impressive. And Elazer has been a little more of that MIA. So, you know, the history favors ShoWTimE. The situation currently favors ShoWTimE. I believe Elazer does not like the matchup. That also favors ShoWTimE. And it is a best of 5, which reduces that amount of volatility. That's maybe a guy like Elazer who can be aggressive and a little bit cheeky himself. Kind of like a Black Light sometimes can force. So, all in all, really favor ShoWTimE here. I think Elazer is he's got 3 2s against the guy, but it was a year ago at this point. I mean, yeah, last time I played a best of 5, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't very one-sided, but it was a 3-1. They've played a weird number of best of 5s, actually. In the last year. Coincidentally, there was the Gamers Without Borders tournament early last year. There was the Big Brain Bouts, and then there was a Comeback TV Invitational. They played that. Let's talk about what's happening in the game, though. We just saw ShoWTimE kind of demolish Bly. Now, that's not unexpected. No offense to Bly, of course. It's just ShoWTimE is at the top of his game currently, and Bly is kind of in and out, very understandably. Elazer is playing well, but did seem to need a little bit of a warm-up in the ZvZ he played. And then I don't know if he's played too many ZVPs. Probably, just because that's what the bracket is full of. I think he actually managed to dodge it. Funny. Elazer faced Exo Striker, Terran, I believe, who we should win against. Oh my god, 5 drones have gone down. Oh my god, 6 drones have gone down. Oh my god, 7 drones have gone down. Oh, call it, guys. Time of death. 1:50 p.m. I don't know what time it is. This is a extremely bad start, so maybe in the way of the ZvZ, he just needs the warm-up. As I continue on, Elazer has mostly 1-2 Zergs. So some of the... I don't think Elazer is a surprising face in the semifinal, to be clear, but some of these good bracket runs do seem to be a lot off of the mirror matchups for certain people. It's funny. But now he's got to remind himself, oh, that's how... Right, that's how the PvZ works. Of course, I'm being a little silly. Elazer has not shown the best start to a PvZ, but, you know, happens to the best of us. And sometimes you really do need that kick in the head to get going. There's a chance that it revives you and you're like, oh yeah, that's how you do things. And there's also a chance that you die from a kick in the head. 50-50, which one is it here? Evolution Chamber coming down for Elazer. I don't know where. I've lost it. Oh, that was a... Wait, what? Wait, what? The Evolution Chamber saved a drone? I gotta admit, that's like the first time I've ever seen that. I don't know. Interesting. You know, I mean, either way, I guess it saved the drone, but it's still overall, so many drones have died in this game. 11. 11 drones, y'all. And 7 of those were in the first 4 minutes of the game. That is bad. Elazer's going to spend most of his game catching up, and it's not impossible, but it is much more unlikely. Considering that a perfectly normal, even game, I would still favor ShoWTimE. A game like this, you have to extra favor ShoWTimE. Three bases all set up here for ShoWTimE as he adds on Blink +1, getting in Templar Archives, all 6 gases. Elazer still recovering really from the early drone damage, has kind of recovered, you know, almost matching the work count of his opponent, but, you know, because you're behind consistently, there you go, there's the income advantage. Overlord in a place where it probably shouldn't be. Actually, I have no idea how I even got there. Oh! It was still successfully hiding on the high grounds. That's the Oracle's hello. You're supposed to help out with that. Oracle's still alive, by the way. 2 more drones go down. They are very near death. But still alive and still doing damage. Six drones in total at the most recent go round of the Oracles. 20 drones. I feel like I'm kind of talking to chat right now because I'm basically just counting how many things are going wrong with Elazer. Just assume that everything's going right for ShoWTimE. I don't even need to mention it anymore. And just assume everything is going wrong for Elazer. That's the casting. Thank you for following my stream. It's seriously not a good start for Elazer. There's a chance that ShoWTimE totally whiffs an engagement and Banelings crash into him. But Elazer was, I would say, I'm not going to say he depended on Banelings. That's really inaccurate. You know, Zergs as a whole depended on Banelings because that's how the meta worked out. You can't blame them for that. But to me, I'm thinking about the most recent, well, not the most recent, but a kind of recent patch in which the Banelings were intentionally nerfed against Protoss. So the biggest one was that they no longer one-shot probes with +2. Sorry. But just in general, they're not as good. So it feels like the amount of times that you see a really poor engagement in an otherwise good game for the Protoss go poorly because of Banelings has lessened. There are still some games, and I've cast one recently where it definitely, nice around there, where it definitely was a mistake on the Protoss' side. They got way too surrounded. They were way too out in the open, and the Banelings were as effective as you remember them. But I would say, you know, besides the perfect engagement, they aren't as much of a, basically a comeback unit. I'm going to say it. Like, I think the Banelings were, a year ago, a fantastic comeback unit because you would scare the Protoss from even engaging with you because, oh my god, Banelings. And then you would also, at the same time, be running Banelings into fields, running them in with Overlords, and they were usually successful because only one Baneling had to hit. Of course, this would not be the game here because there's only +1 melee, but you get my point. I feel like that was actually a really powerful comeback mechanic, I guess, style that the Zergs used to have, and I see a lot less of it now for sure. In fact, certainly what we're seeing here today is a lot more of that dive towards Lurkers. And hey, Lurkers is still pretty good, not gonna lie. But ShoWTimE has a very strong stance in this game because of the way the early game went. He did not think he was ahead enough to just end the game, and I think that's very smart of him. Elazer wasn't gonna roll over and play dead here. So the game's not over. And with Lurkers, we do have another X amount of time in which Elazer can feel even superior to his opponent. But because ShoWTimE has that solid foundation of 4 bases, good army, starting to clear a creep spread, generally can be dependable to be paying attention at the right time as well. I would still give him the edge here, even though Elazer's on 5 bases, 86 drones, 114 army supply, and is finally getting to upgrade, something that he most likely intentionally skipped, knowing that he needed something better than +1 missile hydras. More Prism heading up to the top right. When it does that, we'll probably see ShoWTimE move out maybe a little just to clear up more creep spread. But he is dividing his army, preparing for the inevitable multi-pronged engagement from the Lurker player. Triple Robo, man! 4 Immortals already out, 3 more on the way, +3 attack on the way alongside armor as well for ShoWTimE, who's also preparing that tech swap into Stargates with that +1 already on the way. It is a very normal-looking PvZ. The thing that's primarily missing, I would say, is that in a game where not much has happened since the early harassment, Elazer probably should have a bigger bank. And that is important, because this turns one of these YOLO Lurker burrows on top of the armies into kind of an all-in. If it doesn't work, he's not going to be able to remax. Plus, you're going to need actual time to remax with the Hydras than the Lurkers. And I'm not sure ShoWTimE's going to give him that. Zealots find a gold base attempt. I like that Elazer is trying to take both corners, though. There's a chance one of them will survive. It is the non-gold base one, but still, it's better than nothing. Well, that is a lot of Lurkers with a lot of SimCity and a lot of stack defense. So yeah, you know, maybe no. Maybe try an alternative path. Nidus Worm is on the way. Love that from Elazer. I see, well, that's not actually open. Kudos on ShoWTimE for preparing for this. Either Nidus Worm or, you know, an Overlord would still be able to drop things out, but a cannon is going to buy you some time. I really like that. I like both players' take on the late games currently. I am a intentional stalker sacrifice, I guess. I'm a little surprised that ShoWTimE hasn't been able to gain, now at this point, almost no advantage. I had pointed out that the bank was not a Zerg bank, but that's now not the case. There's 3,500 minerals and almost 1,000 gas. It's still not that impressive, actually, for a Zerg player, of course, but considering that Lurkers they tend to be more cost efficient, that actually is. That's pretty good. So ShoWTimE opens this game wonderfully, but by allowing the game to go so far, the more that you did in the early game, the less it matters. If you get to a 20-minute game, no one talks about the opening. And I'm really quite afraid for ShoWTimE at this point. Elazer, actually showing some patience himself, waited until he had an incredible number of Lurkers, 20 of them, with their upgrades to really go on the offensive. You could definitely have seen Elazer in the past try and win with his first set of Lurkers, and then ShoWTimE would have been prepared for that. ShoWTimE is not prepared for the 20 Lurkers, which did kill his 5th Nexus, which he does need. You know, it's not necessarily a problem for the first kill on it, but the second kill could be a much bigger problem. Nidus Worm not going to the main base as the Overseers saw the defense is ready to go, but it will go somewhere to help out, at least at the very least, be able to retreat. Zealot run by. Would love to have caught that before it actually sprouted all those Lurkers. Carriers are out, and they do have +1. No Carapace on the side of the Zerg because they went for double attack upgrades, so keep that in mind. Storms plus Interceptors, if the Interceptors don't die to the Storm. Pretty good. And the Mothership is also out to help. We got the army, the ground army, the Protoss now reacting to the Nidus Worm. It is a beefy army. The Lurkers will pop so many Archons, however, and so many shields, and will successfully retreat. Elazer not exactly getting the better end of these things, however, as he has lost some units to the right side. He's lost many units to the left side, and overall his supply did dip. 32 Hydras, however, instantly almost remaxing. Gas being Elazer's limiting factor. He got the top right base and has decided not to mine from it, which would be really nice to do, even just for drones on the gases. But also to take away minerals from the more contested bases. Oracle will go down. A little less vision for ShoWTimE. ShoWTimE has had to take some punches in the name of surviving the overall game, and so far he has. His maxed out army is great, and you know, when you start to max out on this type of army, the Lurkers do start to lose their power. There's a chance the Lurkers kill the ground army and the Hydras take care of the air, and that would be perfect, but that's what the Protoss tries to avoid. Everything combined together. The Lurkers now on the chase will be less likely to get that extreme damage done. And it looks like ShoWTimE thinks that he has prepared the ultimate Protoss Sky Army. +2 is done on the Interceptors. 3, 2, 1 with shields there for his ground army. And the shields affect the air as well. Still going to be tough to break through this line with his Spore Crawlers killing his observers. His Oracles getting killed as well. Having to remake those every single time. All it takes is 5 seconds of not having detection for the entire ground army, yes, to die. At that point, maybe you recall and save the carriers, and it's not a total loss, but it's tough. +1 Carapace is on the way for the air armor, I think is officially what it's called, for the Zerg. And Elazer did try and take the gold base, and is still not mining from the other corner base. Immortals being sacked, potentially. These ones aren't. But I wouldn't be surprised if ShoWTimE eventually gives away some Immortals as the lurker count stops being rebuilt. He is at 8 Immortals currently, so I could certainly see 2 of them going along with a handful of charge lots to try and kill some of the SAG defense over to the left, maybe over to the right. Elazer on 5 bases with the 6th not ever mining. He's still fine, but affording a full-on transition himself will be very tough. Trying to get to a proper Corruptor army and then maybe even Broodlords as the game goes on should be very, very tough for him to do. Hatchery killed, not canceled. ShoWTimE, surprisingly, has not checked the corner. That seems that could have been a really big mistake. This could have easily been mining gas and taking minerals so that then the safe first 4 bases remain intact. But stay with me. Nidus Swarm was kind of offensive, kind of like a transport, I suppose. It has somewhat alerted ShoWTimE. Come on, there's creep spread. Come on. It's such an unimportant base because it isn't mining, but you still want to kill it. Still don't want to let him have it. Still don't want 20 drones to pop out of this Nidus Swarm and suddenly start mining there without your knowledge. And oh my god, I think he's not gonna see it. Hydra's gonna be sacrificed here. Sorry, buddies, you're not escaping. Tries to go for the Observer. Does not end up getting it. Elazer gonna make some moves to try and establish a base to the bottom left, I think. He's gonna bring his army to try and make sure that does get up and running. Because his gas count is still abysmal. ShoWTimE is not on a hefty bank himself. It's not like he could remax if things went really poorly for him, which is probably why he's not being particularly ambitious with his main army. Elazer, if he had a bigger gas bank, might have already made a successful transition. 23 Corruptors ain't bad. They got 1-1 on them as well. That's a Deadeye Templar is what it is. Army is out of position. Corruptors went to go pee on a building, which they did successfully. Great, but they're going to lose a hatchery. And it's not the hatchery, I would say, is really the problem, although it is. It's more that is the entire right side now broken open. It's like ShoWTimE came in with a can opener. The spine crawlers aren't there. The lurkers aren't there. The spores aren't there. The creep isn't there. The vision isn't there. Suddenly, that's a whole other aspect of the map that Elazer really has to worry about. When I know it's only a couple of spine crawlers, maybe 1 or 2 lurkers. That actually is at least it's the thing that goes before you're really in trouble. So if you let it go, then you just feel like you're always in trouble on the right side. So yeah, it's more than just the mineral or gas loss. Although that is also something that's important as Elazer tries to build a bigger and bigger bank. Assuring that he can remax, because Zergs will have to win a late game battle. They will have to have more than 1 battle. And that he can get to enough units in the first place. We did see ShoWTimE make a pretty big mistake with some very expensive units. His High Templars caught completely off guard, died. High Templars with Immortals off to the left side is kind of a weird decision. This isn't a thing, right? It's gonna successfully go around the Xel'Naga, kill the hatchery, take on the Lings, and return home, so good for them. Good for them. Elazer finally getting to a greater spire. You know, the lurkers are still helpful. There's never a point where you can just be like, I don't need lurkers anymore, let's just throw those away. That would be a terrible idea. But they are becoming less intimidating. There you go. Less intimidating. As the air army of ShoWTimE got bigger and bigger. I know that the Corruptors are also in a good number of 22 with 1-1 to cover the Lurkers. It's not easy peasy. Just, you know, the Lurkers don't shoot up. But usually you see the addition of Broodlords with Corruptors, with Spellcasters, with a handful of Lurkers. And currently that is what we're missing. Spellcasters. I don't see any Vipers. I don't see any Infestors. I don't see any upgrades for the Infestors on the way. Neural, not bad thing to have. And in a very late game EVP, which this is kind of heading to, usually you also see the Zerg player just go, well, why not? Blah, 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 blah. They get all the upgrades. Not a Zerg specific thing. Every race does that. Oh, I guess I'm not doing anything. Let's just go with the upgrades. Move. But usually the Infestors get the upgrade. We're just not going to have any. Another Neural Parasite is, you know, maybe exactly what you would want. I think it could be helpful. It's better to have it, but maybe not when you're low on gas. But Fungals. Fungals are obviously still nice to have. Vipers for Abducts, also good. Broodlords, speedy as they are, ready to tango, man. They're ready to go, but remember, in a direct battle, they really are not as impressive as they used to be. One Storm already injuring many of them, but High Templars, I believe, starting to get target fire down. Another Storm not really hitting. Well, Corruptors kind of passed through it. This is the majority of ShoWTimE's army, I believe. Some remnants of it that wouldn't even really help all that much, like the Immortals in the direct battle. It would just be body blocked by the Broodlings. Are going to go for an attack on the gold base, ensuring that Elazer does not manage to get a strong economy behind this, as Elazer will successfully force the retreat of ShoWTimE's 6th base. So to keep things even, they have to go ahead and trade bases, and that will be what's happening. Immortals and Storms also looking to maybe attack this base. It no longer has defense. There's no Lurkers. There's no Hydras. There's only static defense. ShoWTimE not thinking about looking for it. Primarily focusing on getting his gold base up. Tempest on the way. Additional air upgrades. We have +3 on ShoWTimE's air attack. 3-3-3 across the ground, and that air armor is the only thing that is currently missing. Elazer also stalled out on his own upgrades, I guess. He got 2-1 for his Corruptors, with the Carapace being the emphasis. 3-3-2 on his ground, with the Carapace not being the emphasis. And finally, we have some Spellcasters being added in. Infestors are on the way alongside that Burrow. Do like to see it. ShoWTimE going to check that corner once more and see that that is a budding, misplaced hatchery, I believe. And does Elazer the favor of killing it. 6 hatcheries have died in this game. 4 Nexus have died. Any other big numbers? 25 Lurkers is a decent amount. In a 23-minute game, you could definitely have more engagements, that's for sure. About a 6,000 resource difference between the two. That's... I cast so many more late game TVZs. I actually am thinking about whether I like that resource loss for any player. I don't know, that sounds kind of... You know, at the end of the day, the Zerg is always the one that remaxes. And 6,000 resource difference? It's kind of understandable for Zerg's position. We got Lings, Hydras, and Lurkers trying to break the bottom left base of ShoWTimE, but ShoWTimE with a pretty appropriate unit response here. He's got most of his air army, but a couple of Storms protecting the right side, or well, kind of. And then he's got a couple of Storms with the rest of his ground army attacking to the left, and I think that's a pretty good split. Elazer looks to have dived on something. I'm not sure even what, because he didn't kill any capital ship. He just lost a ton of health on his Corruptors, and 2 of them also died. I'm much more worried about the health. Well, some of those are one more storm, one more storm, one more storm. Good lord. From death. They do not heal that quickly. Fungal does come down, but here's time to take the engagement, man. Shield Body Overcharge is helping, Cannon is helping, and everything is looking up for ShoWTimE. Elazer, that was absolutely not the engagement. The Corruptors kind of buying time for the Broodlords to try and kill the Nexus might have been okay, but actually taking the engagement we saw went really, really poorly, and Elazer does not have that gas bank. He's been limited to his initial 5 bases for so long in this game, and he does not have a comfy bank at home. Protoss gives a little bit of a chase, does get fungled, but I think it's okay. ShoWTimE's army is just better. Corruptor is still weakened from earlier. The fungal does blanket the army, but keeping it stationary doesn't help. And finally, after 25 minutes, ShoWTimE will successfully win game number 1. But considering they killed 20 drones in the first 6 minutes, I really thought that would be an easier time for him. 25-minute long game 1. Game 2 will be on Crimson Courts, almost promising. There will not be a 20-plus minute game, but most keyword. In the top right, it is Elazer. In the bottom left, it is ShoWTimE. It wouldn't just be the map that I would assume there would not be a 25-minute game, too. It's that Elazer is not generally well known for playing that late of his EVP. You can, because inevitably you're forced into it. You could try and all-in all damn day long, but if it's that game that you just barely do enough damage, it can go 25 minutes. And that's not even what he did, of course. He didn't get into a position where he could all-in successfully. But just saying, it can. It is not Elazer's favorite style. It is not any Zerg's favorite part of CVP, I think. And it was his only answer, I think, to how much damage he did take. So that game, I really feel, was just a pigeonholed Elazer, making the best out of a poor scenario for Zerg players in general and for himself. So you got to give him some applause just for sticking with it, you know? Because a lot of times when a player acknowledges their dislike, you start to really look for the signs that they dislike something. And sometimes those signs are very visible. Like they get to a 15-minute PvZ all in without actually all-inning. And then if it doesn't work, they just tap out. They refuse to play. That's more likely on a ladder game. It's more likely in a open cup no one cares about. But sometimes once people get really frustrated, it can absolutely be that case in a game 1 best of 5 qualifying match. But I don't think I've ever seen Elazer be that frustrated. I would say Elazer is a little more on the side of leaving games a bit later than leaving games a bit earlier. I just want to, empathize with the Zerg players out there who probably know that exact position. They don't want to get to that late game, but they do. But it does. ShoWTimE wasn't going to be fooled, I think, is also something that's really critical here. Elazer was kind of forced to do all those things. Okay, sure. But at any point, if ShoWTimE had shown overconfidence, there is a potential that Elazer is waiting for that. Elazer is actually waiting for ShoWTimE to be overconfident, and he's going to snap his jaws shut and say, thank God, thank you so much for moving out. I didn't want to play a 25-minute game. Oh my God. And that's either way. ShoWTimE wins with an aggressive push, or he loses. Either way, Elazer's probably like, oh, thank God. And of course, that didn't happen. ShoWTimE did not want to throw the game away. And it is a balancing act between being too defensive and losing opportunities to end games, which ShoWTimE has undoubtedly had before, and being overly aggressive because you underestimate your opponent, which has also happened to many of Protoss. So as much as that could be like, none of us really enjoyed 25-minute long game. I think you all can agree with that. They happen. It's gonna happen. More drone damage, this time not as bad as the first game, but 4 drones. Not ideal. The thing is that both adepts did die, so it's, you can actually console yourself with that as a Elazer. This is a much better start. But it wasn't a very high bar to begin with to be a better start. Sorry. So bad. 2 queens trying to get on the offensive, but now they're just a little out of position. 4 queens! Hey, that's a little scarier. Even though there was no Spore Crawler, we even have a Transfuse coming down. Only 2 more drones from that first Oracle. ShoWTimE not keen on, needing to get the damage done. It was just a really nice bonus of last game. We'll grab his third Nexus behind this. Elazer takes a forward aggressive third hatch, and one has to wonder what could that mean. ShoWTimE, he's almost, the roles have swapped here. We have a defensive, almost timid-looking Protoss who takes the Nexus behind the rocks on the side of the map that you can't access, and then the Zerg player is beating its chest and being like, I'm gonna kill you. Elazer, though, trying to get those rocks nibbled down once that opening for whatever he ends up doing. And he got caught out. Adepts and Oracles now flying on by, but 3 queens is a pretty hefty number. At the very least, they just body block. They taunt. They hopefully get a shot directed at them rather than the drones. Slings get a successful surround on the Adept, so the drones will be a little bit safer than they should be. 15 drones, 16 drones in total still dying. And this is overall not a great start for a Zerg player, I would say. Because even though 6 Adepts have died, so if we check at the actual resources lost, you know, considering that they're gas and this is only minerals, it seems maybe even kind of better, depending on how much you weigh gas, I suppose. It's also that you have to then remake the drones. That is all the time they are not mining. That is all the larvae that you use in it. That's all the drones instead of army that you might need when the Protoss follows up. Whereas for the Protoss with the Adept Strike, they kind of got the scout, hopefully, ideally, that they're not being attacked. Because if a laser suddenly had a bunch of roaches and lings pop from all these eggs, and the Adepts died, well then yeah, that is 4 less Adepts on the defense. It might still be a problem, honestly. This is not a laser's whole army, and he is not building any more behind this, but these lings actually successfully breaking through the rocks, getting on top of the shield battery, caused a little bit of doubt. Took so long, though, that the oracles were able to come back and help, and that did not end up being a whole lot. But I feel like a laser should be building up that roach army now, and there is exactly what's happening. Overlords are on the way as well. ShoWTimE trying to get up to the robotics bay. Blink +1 on the way. Ty Friendly, thank you very much for that tier 1 sub, by the way. But, you know, the robotics bay might not actually play a part in this game. Rather, the Immortals might want to start being built here. ShoWTimE gotta... What the freak? What is that? He's gonna build a hatchery. He's gonna build a hatchery. Is he still gonna build a hatchery? No, you don't. No. Slap a laser. No hatchery is going to come down as of yet, apparently. I don't know if it will. But the queens, they want to be able to transfuse, and I guess the thought was eventually they'd have hatch creep? I guess? I don't know. But the point is, it's not happening. No, it is happening! Oh my god, he's going to do it! What is this? What is that? That takes so long to build. I don't see how that's helpful. Oh, I'm a dummy. I'm sorry, Elazer. I'm a dummy. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. Of course. Oh, I literally talked about this earlier in the cast, too. I'm so sorry. The hatchery, when canceled, does have a moment of creep that you can then plant creep. I am so sorry. Literally, you can go back and watch the VODs. I know that was a case. I actually mentioned it in a previous game. I swear to God, I'm not stupid. But temporarily stupid, that I can be. Disruptors are getting damage done. But there's not a lot around those disruptors. There's not a very big gateway army as ShoWTimE was trying to move on. He is still accumulating stalkers, and if he can keep the retention of stalkers, you know, good, then maybe this will work out. And in fact, I think it already has. Yep, a laser gonna tap out. GG. ShoWTimE will defend game number 2. Yeah, now that I have my mind is clear. The first hatchery with a creep tumor might have been very problematic. The queens were full of transfuses, so if that had planted down and he attacks at the angle when he wanted to, I could have seen that being very tricky. But waiting for more reinforcements, waiting for the queens to move over, because, you know, like they're literally one of the problems. They're part of the problem is that they're so slow and fat that he tries to put his hatch back down and he can't, so he has to push it somewhere else and then wait for the queens. That just took too long. It's not the first time we've seen that strategy either. I mean, we don't see it too often is my defense, but I totally blanked. I was like, he's gonna build a hatchery, wait for it to finish, and then commence attack? I'm a dummy. And he saw that with Bly in his evolution chamber block. And then I think we did see it with a creep tumor as well today. Now this could be the final game. In the bottom right of Oceanborn, it is a laser. In the top left, it is ShoWTimE. Elazer did an aggressive push. He did an all-in. That was a good map for it. He had set up his bases to also accommodate for it. He started to nibble on the rocks so that they could be pushed down a bit faster. And his ultimate plan was to do a queen walk with a little creep from that hatchery. Just disregarding my brain fart.
Thank you for
that was a solid plan.
Never mind.
And I think, again, if the plan had executed when exactly he planned on it happening, I think that would have been scary. But by the time he actually executed his ultimate plan, ShoWTimE had retained enough units that the battle of time was going to favor him, you know, as long as he didn't let his stalkers get surrounded outside of a shield battery. First it's 6 stalkers, that's not a lot. Then it's 12. Actually, that's a decent amount. So, you know, Elazer also not with the best possible all-in, I'm certain, because he was losing so many drones. And going back to the whole, like, adept trade. The adepts weren't there to help defend, sure. But the time of which they killed drones, plus all the other drones that were killed, their sacrifice was worth it. Elazer having to rebuild drones throughout the entirety of that game, rather than build drones, plan your all-in, was a big problem for him as well. And I think 6 adepts loss is less of a problem for the Protoss. Unless it's that perfect timing where they die and then 20 lings show up and you're not prepared. So Elazer's got one macro game that he was kind of forced into, and one aggressive game that he was certainly pre-planning, but still was not ideal. And then now, what do you do on Oceanborn? You know, Oceanborn kind of calling for the macro game, but Elazer's playstyle and perhaps dislike of the late game. You know, he lost the one that he played. It deter him from that. Thank you, Kyan Plan, for the Prime sub. Favorite mirror matchup to spectate? PVT, though, probably. I don't know. I actually like all the mirror matchups, honestly. ZVZ happens so rarely, and it's really action-packed anyway, that I really don't mind it. I just, I'm not the best Zerg in the world, so I tend to give that to the other commentators. PvP, I think, is a lot of fun, and I think I understand it enough. I get the gist. I can follow along, even though it can also get kind of wacky. PvT is certainly where I feel the most confident. Not just because I'm a Terran. I feel like it is also one of the more streamlined mirror matchups. ZDZ with Larva, it's crazy. PvP with all the tech swaps and all-ins that it has can be crazy. PvT, yeah, kind of the old standard. First Adept gets killed. This is now officially the strongest start for Elazer. Last game seemed to start off better, and it certainly did in terms of numbers, but it almost got into the exact position that it was in the first game. You know, almost 20 drones killed in the first 6 minutes of the game, I guess, instead of 5 or whatever. Oracle number 1 gonna try and move into the main base. Elazer's defense against the Oracle seem rather good. 2 queens each base. You know, all it takes is one of them being a little out of position for the Oracle to still slide by and kill 3 drones. But a little bit of damage on the whole makes it less likely to do that again in the future. 2 gateways on the front lines into the 3rd Nexus. Pretty safe opener here from ShoWTimE. Not going to take any risks. The Lings were outside of his base, but funnily enough, he just kind of bypassed them and got the 3rd Nexus up anyway. 2 Oracles try their luck in the natural, where they're hoping that the Spore wouldn't be ready, and that is the case. But then also maybe the Queens wouldn't have already walked their butts over there. I think now is, yeah, now we have Spore Crawlers and the other bases. Evolution Chamber's done for Elazer. 4th base is on the way for our Zerg. And the 3rd Nexus is actually in a little bit of trouble here. ShoWTimE, once again, looking to be aggressive with his Adepts. You know, it's one of those weaknesses. You don't have a whole lot back at home. Problem is that you have less Lings at home, of course, for the Zerg player. Especially if you commit to something like killing the Nexus. Wow. if that was a good shade, but it seems like the ultimate goal was a distraction. The oracles wanted to swoop in and get shots on the drones while the queens were busy doing other things. There are so many queens, and they're all coming together in an almost cinematic little surround there that did not work out as well as I think ShoWTimE. Oh, let me check. Yeah, I know that wasn't as well. That wasn't as good as he was hoping. 7 adepts died, 1 oracle died, 11 drones in total, 16 lings. Resources lost. Currently favoring Elazer, not by too much, but still. I think he was hoping the queens would have shift focus fired on the adepts, so that Elazer doesn't even realize that they're not attacking the oracle, and the oracles would have gotten freebie drones more than they did. And not quite what happened. 2 oracles still alive. That's going to be good enough for scouting and some stasis traps in the future. He might even try again to swoop by to kill some drones at the natural or something, but their time is kind of come and gone. ShoWTimE's 3 bases set up, all 6 gases taken. He's going to charge this game, not blink. Templar Archives, I think, a little bit faster this game as well. Oracles do dive in for the scouts. They get a revelation on the macro hatch, but they do not see the Hydralisk enemy. Depending on whether or not Elazer makes Hydras from that main, he might not see them at all. The station pit also on the way for Elazer, and he does seem to be heading to those lurkers. I mean, in order for lurkers to really be very good, they do have to have their upgrades. So even though we're going to ultimately a hive in a later game for an aggressive Zerg player, you know, I think this is not an invitation to another 25-minute game. This is not the Zerg equivalent of trying to turtle with like command centers and planetaries early on. But it is an opportunity for the Protoss to be aggressive. And we got that Warp Prism, we got the 2 Archons, we got the charge that Warp Ins, and I don't know how much Elazer really has to defend against that. Hydras have popped. I think it's quite important that the Queens are all here, because without some type of big body, the Zealots might have tried to go for a surround. I think Elazer did have all the army necessary in the nick of time, with a promise of more army producing. That ShoWTimE does respect it. He doesn't get a free win here. That means that Elazer will get to his hive, will be getting to his lurkers, and will get his opportunity to shine with the lurkers. There was even a moment in that first game of which it looked like ShoWTimE had really given up his advantage. It looked like he was in a lot of trouble against the lurkers, but calmed things down and got to the point that he wanted to get. For Elazer, you basically want to get to that same point without the 20 drones lost from earlier on in the game. And then maybe your lurkers are powerful enough to not just kill a Nexus, like they did in game 1, but they also do successfully kill an army. And, you know, successfully kill the Protoss. That would be great. +1 missile on the way for Elazer. He already has that +1 melee done. There is +2. Got some static defense being set up as Elazer prepares maybe for a longer game, sure, but also for a potential all-out offensive where he doesn't want to be worried about the Warp Prism. Rocks being broken up, more opportunities for different attack angles and responses as well. Lurker Den will finish. And maybe while Elazer gets the upgrades ready, he will go ahead and just play defensive. I mean, that makes sense. Giving ShoWTimE time. Do a very deja vu here. Get to triple Robo, Mass Immortal, Archon, Zealots, High Templar. The only thing missing is a couple more Stalkers with Blink, because he had never gotten it. He doesn't really need it. 12 more drones for Elazer is going to max him out at 100. No doubt some of these going to be turning into static defense, but still, 100 drones, hot damn. Is Rhett here? Make sure to cheer on Elazer at Liquid Rhett. Thank you very much. Reference certainly lost on a lot of people, I'm sure. I just have to constantly remind you guys that I'm really cool and I've been doing this for 14 years. Really important for you to know that. Nidus Storm once again for Elazer, and I will always love this edition. It is such a powerful edition. This time around, we do not have those cannons well placed against Overlord drops and or Nidus Worms. We might eventually. I don't see them coming down. Or Prism tucked in the corner. Burrow speed almost done. Range was gotten first. We're at a total of 16 lurkers. Again, ShoWTimE starting the transition, ready to add on those capital ships whenever he deems it is appropriate to do so. It's fairly similar to Game 1, isn't it? Elazer even planning the almost same kind of attack, same time, despite losing, I think, less drones this game overall, and in less dramatic fashion. Double Nidus Worm, man. Both seen, but only one responded to. Okay, alright, okay. Lurkers trying to hit the front lines. We have ShoWTimE say, I don't care about that. That is an entire Protoss army and only a portion of the Zerg. The Lurkers could not protect each other from a very good anti-Lurker army. Charge a Mortal Archon with a surround? Forget about it. Now this is where the Lurkers are a little bit better, don't they? The choke working beautifully for the Zerg, but not good enough. The storms come in, the more Immortals come in, and there just wasn't enough of a Zerg presence. Elazer has built up a bank, because that's one of the first real engagements we've had. But again, gas is his limiting factor. And while he might not have lost drones in a equally brutal fashion as the first game, Adepts killed 9. That's the first 2 Adepts killing 9 is just insane. He nonetheless had a pretty dramatic loss of units. It wasn't the drones, it was the Lurkers. The Lurkers did not keep up their end of the bargain. They did not trade out their resources. Afraid that more Lurkers will not fix the problem. He has to get more Lurkers all together in a very brutal area. And then even a perfectly anti-Lurker ground Protoss army will not be enough. So if 15 to 20 Lurkers get into this choke, that's bad news to the Protoss. But you can see that wasn't enough Lurkers, that wasn't a good enough choke, and the Immortals are still plentiful enough whenever they have their shields in particular to defend against Lurkers. It is kind of amazing watching a Protoss initially think that if a fight's going well for them because the Immortals have shields, and then they dissipate, and then their Immortals get just obliterated like any other unit against Lurkers. It is fun when that happens. It is not happening in this game. I'm watching Elazer ram his head into a wall. I think at the very least he might be thinking, I do not want to play Corruptor Broodlord. I do not want to play Corruptor Broodlord. I don't want to play Corruptor Broodlord, goddammit! And that's why he's continuing to do this. A lot of other Zergs who are... Well, I'm not even going to say a lot of other Zergs, honestly. I'm going to say Serral. Serral is the only Zerg I've seen just look like he never loses any patience. And I'm not saying that that's even a fault of other pro gamers. It's actually just one of the superhuman powers that Serral seems to have as a Zerg player. He never seems tilted by anything. And I think that's superhuman. I very much understand when the Zerg players across the board of other great Zergs, Elazer, Lambo, Raynor, Dark, Shin, I guess, I don't know. Like, they all sometimes show impatience. And they will be doing the same thing. They don't want to play a super long game. But Serral, in this case, would not have probably remaxed on Lurkers. He probably would have already been planning his own transition. If I had to guess, but it's been a while since we've seen Serral forced into the late game versus Protoss. And like I said, it was Elazer just ramming his head into the wall, trying to make the Lurkers work because he did not want to play game 1 again. And tap out kind of seals that, I think, as the story. That is a less than dramatic 3-0 for the side of ShoWTimE. He will qualify into the closed qualifiers. Closed. Not into the Esports World Cup quite yet. He will be facing the likes of Stats, Bunny, and Shin, as well as Lambo, who advanced today as well. There is one more match in the European Open qualifier. There is a third place match, which would be between Elazer and Psionic. But I cannot cast it.